Welcome back to Cyberology, Dakota State's podcast for all things cyber and technology. I'm Jen Burris, and I have a few guests today. 3 of 4 team members that are traveling to Washington, D.C. next week for a special AI presentation about deepfakes. So I'm going to have you each introduce yourselves. I'll start with you, Ethan.
Hi, I'm Ethan Price.
Hi, I'm Joe.
Hi, I'm Nick.
Welcome. And who is our missing teammate? Just want to make sure that he gets highlighted as well.
Yeah, our other teammate is Samyam, and he is currently not here.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about this AI deepfake presentation that you have. Seeing isn't believing, real-time deepfake for video conferencing. And you're presenting this at a congressional exhibition. Is that correct?
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we were invited back in January to present or submit a proposal about our project that we did last semester, and they were going to fly us out to have a congressional exhibition along with a bunch of different university teams. They're calling them like AI safety teams, and they're each highlighting a significant impact that AI can have on the security aspects and some of the bad things that we should be looking out for. So.
What does a congressional exhibition entail?
That's a great question.
I think they laid it out as it's a bunch of staffers from different Congress members that are coming to go to different booths. They'll just travel between different booths at the exhibition and talk to teams about hey, what does your team do? What does it focus on? What are the implications for policy? What do we have to think about?
Excellent. And so you said you started this project last semester. Can you tell me a little bit about why it was developed in the organization that you worked with to kind of practice and try it out?
Yeah, for sure. We worked with SPS Cybersecurity, and they wanted us to build a module that they could take to customers and consumers to, really highlight the impacts of these deepfake technology. They wanted us to highlight, how easily accessible this technology is. So we used entirely open source software, and then utilize some of their funds to grab a A100 so that we could, emphasize the computational and make the deepfake look really real. Joe kind of did the main interface between those two, so I'll maybe let him talk more about that. But so they helped us with the project idea, and then we worked with Dr. Mark Spanier as our supervisor, and we just started slowly developing. We looked first into deepfake technology. We looked a little bit into voice cloning, and then how we can all pull those together to work as one. So,
yeah, and further on that, we really wanted to show that threat actors nowadays can take technologies that are freely available and have been developed before. So we talk about open source and show that the disparity that people think that deepfake is out of reach is really not. So you can take openly available infrastructure like Microsoft Azure GPUs, and you can just send video up to be processed up there instead of having to do it on a local machine. So it removes that computational barrier to entry to this type of technology for people.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm guessing there are positives and negatives to this?
I mean, the negatives are that nowadays there are lots of threats out there you guys be careful of, right? Some of the things I worry about is receiving a phone call from someone I know, but it's not actually them. So there's also audio deepfakes as well. But the positives to this are that we know it's out there, and there are companies and technologies that are actively working against it to try to stop it. I think some of the big ones are cryptographically signed video devices, so that we can say, okay, I know it's you because I've verified through a secure means that it's you. Some of the, I think there's, are there other, talk about, is there another method that's really big or is that kind of
one other thing is, so a lot of these big corporations who are developing this technology require consent from an individual to be deepfaked, right? But that comes with a cost, right? But our software is entirely free. We pulled it from GitHub, and then we implemented our own way to make it look better. But yeah, so consent is a big thing, and now we are realizing, Nick over there found that one of the people that we were looking at actually removed the consent clause altogether, so you don't even need consent.
Yeah.
So
for the voice cloning, 11 Labs used to require consent. So you would pass your voice through, it would clone your voice, but then it would require a consent, and it would just make you say a couple phrases or words, and then it would verify that the consent voice is your voice. But they received a lot of backlash because now people couldn't make their fun video game voice characters or whatnot. And so what they ended up doing is they ended up pushing that back. And so now there's no consent required, which is what's allowing us to perform some audio deepfakes and some visual deepfakes, stuff like that.
And how do you coordinate those together when you're working with the audio and the visual? How do you make them?
So for right now, we've been struggling with the audio. We got the visual side working, but for audio, there's more work that needs to be done. I think we need to delay our stream probably with like the stream of audio and make sure they line up.
Yeah. So if you think about the technical implementation of that, if we use something like 11 Labs to clone voices, which is pretty good voice clone quality, and then we use the technology we have already, it wouldn't be entirely too difficult. But it would take a little bit of synchronization. So you just have to line up both the video and the audio so it sounds and looks like they're talking at the right time. So like you said, you'd probably delay the video, or maybe you'd have some sort of like, I don't know, encoder, decoder, kind of like how like modern video streamers, like somehow like, they'll break it down into different like packets and whatever, and then all at the end it gets like reorganized to be the right video. So maybe something like that. But I don't imagine it'd be too difficult. The hardest part would just be syncing like lip movement, right, to the words being said,
which could be an audio delay that people would not necessarily automatically think is nefarious.
True. I just went past me. We always forget. Like we look at, so the quality isn't always the greatest. It's not like it's 4K like 60 FPS video, but like one time, like I was like, oh, it doesn't really look that good, and then we put like a background zoom blur on me, and then we reduced me down to like one zoom frame and like a meeting of 9, and it's like I couldn't tell, and it's like that's where like it got scary, because I was like, fair enough, like it looks like a normal Zoom call where there's a little bit of compression, it's a little distorted, but everything else is fine. You see them talking to you. There's no like
we were even looking for it, and we were still like, dang, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Going back to the audio, the other thing that is also a big challenge with audio is the amount of data available, right? So we can easily pull faces from Facebook video, Instagram, like all these social media apps, right? But when we need voice data to actually clone, that's not as accessible unless like these are like really big figures, like, you know, presidents, CEOs, right, that are constantly giving talks. But if it's like your average, you know, bank teller, you might not have voice audio like working with them. So it's easy for us to get our audio, but to get like
someone who's not necessarily a public figure.
Yeah, it's a little bit more tricky. So
and also it depends on the model you're using. Some models have better encoding techniques, or different encoding techniques, to where you only need like maybe like a minute or so.
Yeah.
Whereas
10 seconds even.
10 seconds. Whereas like some were like 10 minutes, right? They wanted like a lot of audio. So there's also differences in terms of like the models being used there.
So can you talk a little bit about how this has advanced from, you know, we're used to seeing the old deepfakes where it's pre-recorded and everything and you just upload it to the internet. Now, as you mentioned, you can do it right on Zoom. What is the implication of that?
Not good, probably. I think when we think about like the positive and negatives of deepfakes, I don't think there's a lot of positives that go into it, right? Because I think the cons and the negatives of deepfakes outweigh. Like we can start scamming people easier, right? You don't need to worry about like the facial authentication of like Zoom calls anymore, right? Something that used to be so secure is now kind of just in the past. Like you actually have to worry about that still. And yeah, maybe you guys have anything else to add?
I mean, I totally.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with them. I mean, the negative use cases far outweigh the positives in terms of deepfakes. Like the big like positive use case for deepfakes I can think of is like you want to remain anonymous online but still want to like video stream to someone, so you could like, hey, I'm just obscuring my face to look like someone else, but let's have a talk, like, hi, I'm blah blah blah, you know. But like that's about it I can think of, unless
No, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to see the deepfake, but at the end of the day, there's just so many harms that, I mean, that's kind of why we're bringing this up.
Yeah.
And
So I was gonna say, I think like the progress and the technological advancement is wonderful, but like, what does that actually mean for society? Because now that we've discovered this or we've created this, you can't just roll it back, right?
Exactly.
It's always going to be out there. So now we have to like think about like policies and ways to mitigate the damage that they could cause. Because like we talk a lot about like these CEOs and these like big political figures, but like once again, like this affects just the average day American citizen. Your grandma who thought like, oh,
my grandson needs $200 because they contacted me.
And they FaceTime me, right? Because you can do it via, phone calls and stuff, things like that as well now, which is super scary. So
It could probably even divulge down into like cyberbullying for young people too.
Yeah. I mean, we thought catfishing is bad right now.
Yeah.
Imagine now that we can
my goodness.
show faces like
yes,
that.
because you think, okay, video is the one thing that can like confirm, I see a photo, that could be Photoshop, but video has to be real, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so since we don't have that anymore, why is it so important to help educate everyone about the fact that this exists, that it's available for people to use?
One of the big things that we need to educate people is, I think, just on AI generally, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, I hear it from my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, people who are not in technology don't fully understand like what's happening. And so just showing that this is like a real possibility and like to watch your online presence is so important, because what you put out there is now going to affect your everyday life, right? And that was said, 10 years ago even. But now it's like we can just pull your information, your data straight from online, put it on some sort of virtual camera, and then stream it, and then get like your bank information, your bank accounts, things like that. Like that's like I think it's super important to just highlight all the bad things that can come with like this technology.
I think it's like any technology where we first got email, and then people learned that you could write lies in emails. And then, it turned from that to like phishing and these sophisticated techniques. I think it's the same thing where we all of a sudden have this technology, right? It's these powerful AI processing techniques. And then
one bad actor finds it and
exactly we
exploits it. And
we learn about these, bad use cases of them that are taking over, and you wonder, okay, now how do we just have to stay vigilant. It's like anything else. There's always going to be some people who get schemed and unfortunately fall victim to it. And I think even like, unfortunately with these types of attacks, even educated people who are looking out for it are still like susceptible to it if you're not like on the ball.
And you mentioned that when you've done Zoom calls that it was really hard even for you guys when you knew you were operating it to tell. Are there things that people can look for that highlight a person potentially using deepfake technology?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple things. The thing you got to remember is that at the end of the day, it's a computer program running and it's trying to work with what it's given. So in most cases, it's trying to find facial features that the scammer or the deepfake person is aligning to. So an easy test that you could do is like have them try to like take their hand, make it like a high five, place it over their face, and then if you start seeing some masking or some weird things happening,
distortion there.
Yeah, if it starts like trying to like overlay their face onto his hand or things like that, you can start telling, okay, this isn't real. Another good test that some of the models fail, but some don't, is like depending on the rotation of their face. So if you just tell them to tilt their head all the way to like their right shoulder and then like maybe twist a little bit back and forth, left and right, it might not align correctly. And then all of a sudden you'll see, oh, okay, it's not working anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I know it might sound silly, but also like bringing back like passkeys and phrases that you might have to say, just to confirm that it's you and you understand like what's happening. I know you mentioned the rotating faces. I mean, in newer models, they've already began to update that and fix these issues, right? So this technology is always going to get better, but passwords are forever. So,
but the scary part is like, at least in our program, like it's designed so that when it stops like detecting like my face or whoever is there, it just stops streaming entirely. So to anyone on the Zoom call, it just looks like you're lagging, that's the hard part too. It's like some of these tests, they just be like, oh, I lagged out. What do you want me to do again? Sorry. Like, and so you have to like be a little more vigilant. So ultimately, maybe like a passphrase is better. Like, hey, what did we decide on today? Like, what's our code?
Mhm.
Okay. So when you were working on this project, what was the process like? How did you collaborate and kind of test different things out?
Well, we were presented with a bunch of different problems. The first day that we went to AI Bagel Time, shout out to AI Bagel Time. And then we all found this one super interesting. We just kind of formed a group instantly. And then every week we met on Monday for about 2 to 3 hours discussing what we're doing, what we need to do, and then taking it step by step. We started just like looking at what's out there, right? Looking at GitHub, looking at all these different platforms that host these models, and then being like, how can we take this, use it, and like we tested it out to see which one performed the best, and we ended up with a software called Deepfakes Live that performed well. It was trained on over 4 million faces,
Yeah.
something crazy like that, and it only takes a single picture and it doesn't take any training time at all.
Oh, wow.
Before, so it's instant. Like you upload the picture, you say like stream, and it's good to go. And then we started looking at some voice cloning software, and that one, once again, that's not as
Yeah. Voice cloning right now just isn't where it needs to be.
Quite perfected.
Yeah.
Well, it's also just not as open sourced. So
So there's more capital outlay if you wanted to really get.
yes, yeah. You know, it part of that is also so about this is like 5 to 6 months now. GitHub released their new terms of service, and what happened there was they outlined in that any software focused on developing synthetic material that includes like deepfakes, AI voice cloning, anything that's like related to like fake things that are used to deceive or harm others. Those are no longer allowed to be on their platform.
Oh, okay. So
So-
they are working. There are some organizations and businesses that are working to help prevent this from being used nefariously.
Yeah, and the funny thing was we didn't even know that. It's like I had forked the repo and I was working on it because there's still if you look up Deepfakes Live right now, there's a archived repo, but if you try to fork it and work on it on GitHub, I'll tell you right now, you will get it taken down.
going back to like them taking it down, it's funny because before this was taken down, they had a giant thread in this repo basically discussing like why this technology is bad, that this technology should never have been uploaded open source, like nobody should have like been posting this at all. And it was funny because like they would go back and forth about like why this should be taken down, and now saying like actions being taken is really good, but it's already out there. Like you can't do anything to stop
can't
it.
undo it.
Yeah, exactly. Once something's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. Right. So
what for the open source software, what kind of research did you do to choose the one that you went with? Did you just test them out? How did that process work?
Yeah, we initialized a lot of different models. We ended up searching. We looked at a lot of different research papers because some of them had links to models. Tested out a lot of different GitHub pages. Some models we got up and running really easily. Some took quite a bit longer. But after doing a lot of testing, we came to Deepfakes Live as the primary thing we wanted to work on for our project. And then once we got that initialized, we also looked for voice cloning software, but obviously that wasn't quite as good. So,
and one of our main thing while looking at everything is we wanted everything to be free. So we saw the models from 11 Labs, but we didn't think it was a viable option just because we wanted to try to keep everything free, show that everything's easily accessible. But then, thinking back about it, like in the long scheme of things, how much is it? $20 a month for 11?
yeah,
If you're looking to scam people, someone will fork over $20.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're going to be making money off these like great things. And now that they've removed consent clauses and all this stuff, it's just, it was maybe a no-brainer to go to 11 Labs. So we've been looking at it, but we don't think we'll have it completed in time for DC, unfortunately. But yeah, so.
Okay, so once you found out that you were going to DC to present this, how did you start working on your materials and your presentation?
We spent about well, we had to get together and be like finalize everything, and we had to figure out to remove the UI, so it was like a very seamless process. And Joe worked on a lot of that. Thank you, Joe. And we spent like one day from like 4 o'clock to like 2 in the morning, just straight like working on it. But it was really, I mean, I thought it was fun. So
Yeah, it was definitely fun. I mean, a lot of the issues so far have just been taking this technology and trying to fit it to our use case. And again, we're under a time, like a deadline in terms of time, but someone who has enough time and enough resources, it won't matter to them, right? They're just going to, they're just going to set it up. It's not for example, you take a nation state actor, like this is a lot bigger of a threat because they have unlimited resources and they're able to like take their time and really perfect this to what their use case is going to be.
yeah, we're just a bunch of college students who do this for fun. So imagine what it's like in the government facility's hands, in an enemy's hands who spends all day working on this kind of stuff. So yeah, but otherwise we just had to like put together proposals and we had to answer a bunch of questionnaires, a lot of just like paperwork and logistics stuff. That's not as fun as the technology side. So.
And what did SBS Cybersecurity think of the project as you developed it and started working on it together with them?
I think, looking back, I don't know if I can speak on their behalf, but I think they kind of like, quote unquote, used us, but they wanted to see like how easy it is to develop it, because they want to know like, is this something we should actually like show to our CEOs? So after we kind of gave a presentation of, hey, this is what we did, this is how it works, I'm guessing they started some internal thread to like make their own version of it. But I think that's what ultimately happens. They want to see, can people do this? Is this an actual threat? And then we demonstrated that it could be done, and we're just a bunch of college students.
Yeah. And they were fantastic.
They were lovely.
They were amazing
to be clear,
to work with.
No ill will, nothing towards them.
We love SBS. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah, they were very impressed. And once again, we were, on a time crunch even back then too, figuring things out. And we've now like really refined it, I think, like make it, a demonstration. And, these could be taken to high risk, I think, places like banks, healthcare facilities, government offices to show like, oh, this is, not good. Like this is going to be a serious threat for you to come. So you better be like aware of like these kinds of threats. And then, how do we like mitigate them? How do we identify them? Things like that. So.
And so was there something that you found like the most surprising while developing this, like ease of use or anything like that?
It took a while to figure out which models were working, but once we figured out that Deepfakes Live was one we were going with, it was incredibly easy to set up. Very easy just to upload a photo and then just start using it immediately. You did need a little bit of background knowledge, but I think anyone spending like a day or two could probably get that sort of thing set up. So it just really surprised us how easy it was and how accessible it was to just anyone.
I mean, if you have a background in computer science or programming or development, there's an entire like markdown document, README, and you can just walk through it step by step and they'll just tell you how to set it up. Like it won't be like, for example, it won't have everything that like we're working on, but if you just go to the open source repo right now, you could go do that.
One of my favorite things were, I think, just limitations on deepfakes and like finding them. We kind of talked about it previously, but if you have like a beard or, you're a different ethnicity, like these deepfakes don't perform as well on you, right? Because they're trying to map facial features, not, skin color or beard length things. So, for example, Mark Spanier has a beard, if you guys did not know. And we'd like place it on him and you'd still see a small outline of like a chin strap of a beard that would identify them. And then, as I said, Samyam's from Nepal. And so when we put these, white people on him, it would not match and it wouldn't look like him at all because he has, darker skin tone than like the rest of us. And it's just really interesting to think, okay, well, in order to do a deep fake, you have to at least semi look like the person or at least have the same, characteristics of like face shape, hairline, skin color, things like that. So that, there is some,
limitations currently?
Currently. But once again, these can be solved. These models are 2 or 3 years old, and I bet you somebody's figured that out. So
I'm imagining some like hacker team out there with a rotating cast of like different facial like people and like different heights, everything. Like they're all like they have
Let's try out this person. Oh, you match their build. Let's try you out.
It's like avatars in real life, right?
I'm just thinking it's like Ocean 11, but instead of like each one has a role, each one is deepfaking a different person.
Yeah.
So, what's the most important thing that you hope people take away from your presentation on Monday?
I hope like staffers really, talk to their Congress leaders and their bosses about like, oh, like this is actually something we should focus on, and like there's a big threat, especially when we're in like such a when there's always tension in the air and politics and things like that, right? You never know, because there is going to be the next conflict. It's going to be based in the cyber world, right? It's going to be based in like these spaces where misinformation, misguidance is like going to be huge, and it's going to be able to spread propaganda like wildfire. I mean, really convince, I think, the masses that these videos are real. I mean, I see it all the time on Instagram. Like I'll see like these AI videos that are trying to sell products, and I'll be like, oh, that's a real person. Oh, no, it's not. It's actually completely computer generated. And so like, recognizing like, oh, more policy should be centered around this. More, research should be done into this and how we can prevent it. And so that's something I really want the Congress people to take away from this presentation. But
I think furthermore, there's one big company out in the space just doing some market research was TruePic. So TruePic right now works with some industry partners to build cryptographically signed cameras, and they work with people like the State Department. And their entire goal is, okay, if we send using a protocol that's been open sourced and like it's a known protocol, we can now send video and have it so that I can guarantee that this camera I can associate with this like address basically, and so this is you. Like if you're sending from this camera, you have to be there.
I think it's also important because like video editing has been around for a while now, but like you could see when frames would be out of touch or out of sync, right? And that's how you could identify, oh, a video has been edited, right? But now with AI, you can like make those seamless transitions frame by frame. And so being able to recognize, oh, these frames were taken by this camera from this device at this time, I think is going to be way more imperative in the next couple of years than people may realize, especially in like law enforcement and like the legal system where we use this as evidence.
So the metadata really makes a difference.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
I think there could also be, and I also worry just personally about like the privacy implications of that technology too, because if it becomes widespread and everything becomes cryptographically signed, you worry about people like journalists or things like that, where if everything can be tied back to them, what's going to happen there? So I think that there needs to be careful investigation about the optimal like outcome we want out of this, because if we just haphazardly integrate these technologies or just send them, we can have wide-reaching problems in terms of maybe like privacy or safety for individuals who want to remain anonymous.
Okay. And do you see yourself continuing this research in deepfakes for AI? Moving on to another project?
We've talked about maybe like diving into like cryptically signed, cameras and seeing like what that looks like and maybe like more solutions. But I think with school, that's probably our primary goal is to finish school right now. But I'm always down to continue something like this, but I'll let them speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to continue looking into 11 Labs at least and seeing if I can work on streaming some of that. But
yeah, I mean, personally, I'm interested in, I love these like project-based things where you sit down and you say, okay, let's build this little thing and see what happens. And whatever DSU wants to throw at us, I'm happy to clunk away at.
Okay. What have we not talked about that you think would be important to highlight? What have I missed about this project?
I think we've talked about a lot. We could just like giving a summary. I think it's important to note that the entirety of this was built upon foundations of open source technology that anyone could access even right now. And that like our innovation on it was that just from like any laptop that doesn't need a GPU, you can stream it up to a cloud provider. And then that cloud provider will then do some computation. It will use the Deepfakes Live program. And then that will send it back down to your laptop, which can be streamed anywhere. So, The biggest limitation of this implementation is delay, but ultimately delay is only going to be as slow as it takes to process on your GPU and maybe the travel time, but it's minimal, especially if you choose a data center that's near to you.
So it's very accessible to just about anyone.
Yeah.
You could probably pull it up on this laptop right now and start running it. So,
Who do we want to deepfake today?
oh, which president should we choose? So,
Just kidding. Okay, so how can the everyday person find out more information about this? What should they do to safeguard themselves?
I think in terms of safeguarding yourself, especially in your close personal circles, if you're really worried about having these types of threats employed against you, I think, okay, first of all, everyone should realize that unless you're a high value target, if you're related to officials, CEOs, the high level positions that are worth the time and effort, you're most likely not going to be targeted by these attacks. But that being said, if you do feel like you are still under the threat of these, it's important to develop secure ways of communication between your circles. So I personally recommend an app like Signal. Signal is end-to-end encrypted. You can text between your family members. You can guarantee that anything you send in there is totally safe and secure. Or like some other people have suggested, like having a passphrase. So like, our passphrase is banana monkeys. And if you don't say that, and I go, hey, what's our password? And like, you can't tell me, then you're not real.
I think it's also like just the same saying and phrase we've used since the internet's has come out, is that not everything on the internet is true, right? Always be careful about whatever you're on, video calls, web pages, articles.
If something seems odd, research it, double check. Don't just take it
Exactly, right.
at
Seeing
face value.
isn't believing, so.
Not anymore, right?
Not anymore, so.
Okay. And can you do a little plug for AI Club and AI Bagel Time?
Yes, I love AI Club. I'm vice president of AI Club. We do everything related to AI. We do projects. We're doing AI Week coming up next week, where we're going to have a bunch of different little events throughout the entire week, where we're going to do, AI bingo, where you can learn fun facts. We're going to do a Q&A panel on Wednesday with all the AI professors, talking about what it's like to be in this industry, how they got into it, and then talk about like AI policy and maybe DeepSeek, which is a big model that just came out, and then end it with a movie night. But then little things are happening otherwise.
Didn't you guys also have that like race car, that deep?
Yeah, we also just got this AWS race car, which has become entirely open source as well. So we're gonna be playing with that. So show up on Thursday, because we are going to be working on that, and we're gonna show like what it looks like and do some computer vision and deep learning stuff.
And that'll be in the Beacom building on Thursday?
Yep, Beacom 112 at 7 p.m. Okay, so yeah, be there or be square. Otherwise, AI Bagel Time is it's a semester-long project, and they've recently changed their name, I believe.
They did. I will not remember it correctly.
It's really long.
Did they?
Yeah, it's like AI innovation and
Innovation something.
But anyways, that's a semester-long project, and right now they're doing 2 different projects on LifeScape, where they're trying to identify if a patient is going to have an attack based off of vital signs, and then the other one is going to be expanding upon a project from last semester from East River, where they're trying to identify high and lows for electric consumption and try to predict when they need to allocate resources, or when they can pull away resources as well to reduce your cost and things like that in your energy bill. So those have already started, but look out for that. Always, every semester, every beginning, there's probably gonna be an announcement. Look at AI Club, will probably post something about it. AI Bagel Time has their own Discord server as well. So yeah, watch out. But hope to see you on Thursday, and then next week as well for AI Week.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you all so much for coming in to chat with me. And I can't wait to hear how Monday goes for you. And we'll have to connect back and kind of do a debrief.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Sounds great.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
This
thank
is
you.
an awesome opportunity.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe.